The measuring stick just changed around here, buddy. You're looking at it.
You are now listening to the Outsiders Podcast, the most exciting and hard-hitting show on the net. And now, bringing it hard as always, here are your hosts, Clint Schweitzer and Noah Groniger.
And you know what that means. The Outsiders Podcast is going to be talking some college hoops. No! Welcome to the show. I'll tell you what, we've got some great stuff going on today. We're going to be talking about the number one spot in the polls, who should occupy that. And we're going to be going in specifics about Mizzou and Gonzaga basketball. We got J.T. Tiller coming on, ex-Mizzou guard, to talk some Tiger hoops.
We've got former Gonzaga guard Matt Santangelo, ran to the Elite Eight in 1998.
We're going to be talking college basketball, so buckle up. We've got some great stuff for you, of course. Coming off a crazy weekend, it has been topsy-turvy. They are in the top five. Seen a lot of top five teams go down. We had Duke just the other night. We've had Louisville lose twice. Who's number one? I want to know.
I've got Michigan, number one.
Well, you're wrong. The University of Kansas will be number one coming today. We know that, and they may not lose another Big 12 game. They're just going to sleepwalk through an entire season, winning games by 6 points, and that's going to be that.
That is. I mean, the Big 12 is weak, and they're just going to walk right through it. And
make no bones about it. The Big 12 is absolutely horrible. I won't listen to an argument otherwise. It's atrocious.
Who do they have? I mean, K-State, Gonzaga beat them by 16. Oklahoma State, Gonzaga beat them. I mean, these teams aren't that strong, aren't that powerful, and Kansas is just going to walk right through it.
But this is just another typical Kansas team coached by Bill Self. They have the superstar in Ben McLemore, who's playing as well as anyone right now. Definitely, probably freshman of the year. Maybe getting the argument of player of the year. He's that good. But they're sleepwalking through these games. They're not looking that impressive. Of course, their one loss is to Michigan State. That was 2 months ago. But they have had close calls, with Iowa State. Beat them by a miracle 3 at the buzzer to go to overtime. Sleptwalked through the Texas game. Sleptwalked early through the Texas Tech game. And sleptwalked through a win at Kansas State, which is a pretty good win. That's a top 15 team. I don't
know how they got to number 11 myself. I mean, I haven't seen much of them, but I saw Gonzaga just manhandle them and shut down Magruder.
I think there's a good chance Kansas is number one. I think there's a good chance they stay number one until the end of the year because I don't think they're going to lose a Big 12 game.
I don't either.
I think they're just going to beat everybody by 6 points.
But it's going to be tough with Michigan up there. They could easily get the number one spot, but if they fall, then Kansas will be
Hardaway, love what the Wolverines are bringing in, and we just saw the Duke Blue Devils, who had just regained the number one spot, get just shellacked by the Miami Hurricanes just the other night. Duke loses by 27 on the road. That's going to knock them down. We've seen, NC State knock off Duke, and then North Carolina State turns around and gets beat, by the likes of Maryland.
Butler beats Gonzaga, then Butler loses to LaSalle by 1.
You're seeing a lot of crazy stuff, and you're seeing right now the Missouri Tigers playing without its best player, and you're seeing the ramifications of that. So, as we're talking about Missouri first, and we're getting ready to be joined by J.T. Tiller, Missouri playing right now without Lawrence Bowers. It's gone 2-2 in games without him, but on the road games, they've just got absolutely pummeled by Ole Miss and by Florida, 2 of the worst performances I've seen a Missouri team have. Again, do you attribute that to the fact your best player is out, or is that no excuse?
It's an excuse. Your best player is gone. You need him on the boards. You need his points. And without that, they're searching elsewhere, and they're not finding it.
Oh, and Phil Pressey struggling right now. He turned the ball over, I believe, 10 times against Florida. Missouri very nearly got picked off by South Carolina just the other night. So right now, it's looking at a point where, as the schedule is definitely easing up a bit, and we talk about how bad the Big 12 is, the SEC is definitely no better, if better at all. I mean, you've got Florida right now playing really well. Kentucky is a disaster. Ole Miss has just crept into the top 25, and you've got Missouri. We'll see what happens once they get Bowers back. And it's just interesting because the SEC, Big 12, they're maybe fighting it out for worst conference right now.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. You got Kansas and you got Florida. Those are pretty much the two powerhouses, and other than that, it's pretty much just a few scrambled here and there in the top 25.
Yeah, and I think it's going to change. Missouri's right now getting a lot of right now they're getting their best production right now out of Jabari Brown. The transfer from Oregon right now is really triggering that offense, and this was a really, really bad offensive team against Florida, and then the other night against South Carolina. They got back to it. They got the ball inside to Alex Oriaki, who finally is playing like a guy that you look at when you see him transfer from UConn, 6'10", just huge, 255, 60 pounds, just a rebounding specialist. Maybe the offense isn't quite there for him, but you saw Missouri finally make that step. We're going to see what happens. Missouri's got Vanderbilt on Saturday, not a very good team. So once Missouri gets back into the heart of that schedule, they'll have Arkansas and Florida later on. But right now, we don't maybe know much about Missouri other than that they got to get Lawrence Bowers back. So that being said, let's go on bring JT Tiller on. We're going to be talking some Tiger hoops with our man JT Tiller. All right, welcome back to the Outsiders Podcast. Clint Schweitzer and Noah Groniger here, and we are talking Mizzou Tiger basketball. And none other than JT Tiller joining us right now. Of course, you know JT for that run, the 08-09 Elite Eight. JT, an integral part of that team. JT, how are you doing? What's been up with you, my man?
I'm doing pretty well, actually. Just living this European life as usual over here in Poland again.
Oh, yes, that is one thing I was going to ask you about is the pro ball over there, of course, overseas. A lot of ex-Tigers over there. Now, JT, of course, part of that 08-09 team. Before we get into the current state of the Tigers, wanted to take a step back with you to that 08-09 special team. Of course, you came in as a Mike Anderson recruit. First couple years did not go that well in that system. But by 08-09, just give us a little rundown as far as what happened, how that team was able to get going. Of course, we had incoming freshmen, Kim English, Marcus Denman, guys like that. How did that team become so special?
I think the year prior to that really had played a big part in that 08-09 season. We had such a I don't even know what you want to call that, newsworthy season in 07-08 with so many suspensions and people kicked off the team and things like that. Once we got those players coming in, those freshmen, those transfers, and just that core of the team that actually stayed for 08-09, we all just had the same goal in mind, and that was to be successful.
Well, of course, you guys wind up falling to UConn in that Elite Eight. No shame in that. They were the number one seed. It was a wonderful time for Tiger fans, and of course, you noted as just a tenacious defender. I mean, did you get off on that when people would say JT Tiller, a tenacious defender, or did you kind of take that as a slight in that, hey, you can score the ball too, which you did, especially in that Memphis Sweet 16 game? I mean, you were scoring the ball like crazy. So did you take that as a slight, or did you think that was a compliment, the defender compliment?
No, it was definitely a compliment, I really worked hard on, just getting my defensive prowess together, and just having my name in the conversation is really just, it's a compliment in itself, so I definitely didn't take it as a slight at all.
Well, as we fast forward to today, JT, of course, I'm sure you follow the Tigers still very closely. Frank Haith hired, of course, 2 years ago as Mike Anderson moves on to Arkansas. Your former teammate Lawrence Bowers still around. He had suffered a knee injury last year, and now Bowers is out again with a knee injury. What have you seen out of this year's Tiger team, and what are your thoughts on Frank Haith so far?
I really like Coach Haith. He's a very good person, very good coach. Definitely smart and can get the job done. And he has those guys really working hard, and their system. It's a great system to play in. It really just ranges and lets the players play to their strengths and play free. I just think that it's with the loss of Mike Dixon, the point guard role and the guard role is really taking a hit, especially on field. It's taking a toll on field because he has a lot of pressure on them. But the team as a whole they're very good, and I think if they can just make it to a tournament and just pretty much carry on through this season, they'll get better.
Well, I want to ask you about that, too. Of course, you are from Georgia, came in playing in the Big 12. Missouri now in the SEC. How do you feel about that? Because I'm sure that would have been nice for you to have been able to play down in front of your friends and family down in Georgia and Alabama and Mississippi, things like that. How do you feel about Missouri in this new conference?
I love the move. Like you said, I grew up on SEC football and basketball and things like that. So just to see Missouri be able to make that move, it's pretty nice because when I'm actually at home, I can actually catch a Missouri game if they're anywhere around the area.
I want to talk about your former coach, Mike Anderson. Of course, he brought the fastest 40 minutes system into Missouri. He moves on to the University of Arkansas. They're still trying to find their way. Just give us your thoughts, on Coach Anderson and that system, and how, what your feelings were when he decided to move on to Arkansas. Was it kind of a bitter feeling, or were you happy that he was able to move on to where he wanted to be?
First of all, I really enjoyed the system. I think it fit my game very well. I think that's one of the reasons why I was recruited so heavily for him. And the feeling was bittersweet, I want to say. I would love coaching at Missouri, but, everything happens for a reason. I'm just glad that he's back at, the school where he started at, and, everybody's happy.
Well, I want to go back to Lawrence Bowers for a moment. This is a guy that you played with and was an integral part of a couple teams that you played on. And now Bowers finds himself back on the bench with another, albeit very small, knee injury. How important is it for this Tiger team to get Lawrence Bowers back and healthy? Because we've seen this Missouri team struggle on the road in SEC play without Lawrence so far.
Lawrence is integral to this team. He plays a very big part, whether it's on the defensive or offensive end. I think outside he's almost averaging about 17 points per game, and just his leadership and his presence on the floor just makes such a big difference. And you can definitely see it when he's not out there.
Got to ask you this. Missouri's going to tangle with the Arkansas Razorbacks twice this year. A, who are you going to be cheering for? And B, how big of a rivalry is this going to be going forward with Mike Anderson and Arkansas?
I think it's going to be a huge rivalry, especially with Coach A being as fresh away from Missouri as he is. Especially because I think he's coming into Missouri Arena on senior night, so that's going to be crazy. But me, I have to root my alma mater. I have to go with the Tigers. I can't really go against them.
Yes, absolutely. Great answer there, JT, of course. And as we move on from that, I want to kind of go back one more time back to your playing days and the rivalries you had in the Big 12. I mean, you guys, the rivalry with Kansas, of course, is second to none. Now Missouri does not have that rivalry anymore. Do you think that hurts not having a big game like that? Because I go back to the game in 2009 with when Zaire, Big Shot Taylor, hits the shot. You guys beat Kansas. I mean, just go back to that rivalry and how that felt and how much Missouri will miss that.
Oh, man, that Kansas rivalry is second to none in my opinion. I think it's up there with the North Carolina and Dukes and, Michigan States and things like that. It's one of those games where you just throw all the records out the window. A team could go win 0-20, but when you come into that game, it's all about the fight, how much you want to win, and just how much you hate that. Like, it's a legit hate for the other school, and I think that's very important in the season. I think most schools are really missing out with that game.
Yeah, definitely agree there. And one more question for you on the 40-minute system. The criticism of the fastest 40-minute system, of course, is that it doesn't work on the road. What are your thoughts on that? Because obviously the team that went to the Elite Eight, you guys were, I believe, 12-4 in the league that year, won most of your road games. I mean, does it not? What do you say to people that say, okay, the system doesn't work on the road? Their guards, if a team has quick guards, they'll just run up the floor on you. I mean, is your reaction to that?
I think it's just the player personnel. I think 08, 09, we had so much buy-in, and it just fit our team so well. And we understood the system, that it actually worked for us on the road and at home and things like that. It's all about adjustment, So when you throw a system like that out there, you just have to be able to adjust and read the other team and be able to work off what they're doing if something needs to be tweaked.
Well, we'll definitely see how that works going forward there at Arkansas with Mike Anderson. Now, as far as yourself goes, you mentioned playing in Poland. Give us a rundown of kind of what you've been up to since graduating from Missouri and where maybe we can catch you playing and things like that.
Well, right now I'm in my second season out here in Poland, playing for a team called Topsy-turvy. I got out here in, I want to say, mid-November, and just helping the team try to get some wins. And I've been playing pretty well. I'm just getting acclimated back to the European basketball life. And right now, I think our team is really on the upswing. They started out rough, but we've got a couple of players back, and it's starting to get rolling. So it's pretty exciting over here.
Well, JT, we always love seeing our ex-Tigers playing pro ball wherever it may be, and we wish you the best of luck. And can't tell you thanks enough for joining us today, talking some Tiger basketball. Let's catch up in the near future. We really appreciate it. And you take care over there in Poland and try to stay warm, man.
Definitely. This negative degree weather is killing me over here.
Yeah, hey, you're from the southeast, so I know that's probably a little shock to you. It was bad enough in Missouri, but Poland, that's a little something else now. So try to stay warm.
Yeah, you're telling me.
Good. Hey, well, good luck this season, JT. Thanks for talking Tiger basketball with us today, and we'll keep up here in the near future, my man.
Sounds good. Always a pleasure. You have a good one.
Thanks a lot. You too, JT. And thanks a lot to JT for joining us, talking some Tiger hoops and taking a break from his busy schedule in Poland, playing pro ball out there to talk to us. I would not want to live in Poland. I'm just
no. The Zags have a Poland player. I'm sure he's much.
Well, you know, the Iron Curtain existed there until like the late '80s. I mean, Poland is not the warmest of environments, I would say, but if you're playing pro ball, I think you would play wherever you can go. And we're just happy for JT Tiller able to play pro ball, and he's made some good points, you know, about Mizzou. And I think that definitely agree with him about, you know, Phil Pressey feeling the pressure right now, and we're going to see where that goes. But, I mean, right now, college basketball, it's in a state where you look at the best conference being the Big Ten, and I want to bring up a specific team with you from the Big Ten. Illinois. What happened to the Illinois Fighting Illini? This was a top,
I guess they're missing that
10
threes. Team. That's what it comes down to with them. So.
Well, they got into conference play. They ran through their non-conference roughshod. They beat Butler. They beat Gonzaga. Then it fell apart for them. They started Big Ten play. They got dismantled. You know, they've been beaten by Purdue. They've just been getting kicked around by, you know, the Minnesotas of the world. I mean, they looked like a really seasoned team that was coming together at the beginning of the year. Not so.
I didn't even really see that they were becoming a seasoned team. All I saw was they were making their threes. They make them, they win. They miss them, they lose. They've started missing them. Unfortunately, they were making them at will against my Gonzaga Bulldogs and really crushed us and threw us out of the building. And now they're missing them and they're losing.
Well, let's transition into the Gonzaga Bulldogs, because coming off of a loss Saturday to the Butler Bulldogs at Hinkle Fieldhouse, a place I've actually visited, of course, famous building where the last shot of Hoosiers was actually made in real life, and the movie that depicted that moment was filmed. And you know, a last-second loss to a non-conference team playing at home, there's no shame in it. Of course, it was a heartbreaking defeat with the intercepted inbounds.
Well, they had their star leading scorer, Rodney Clark, was out of the game, so I thought we'd definitely take hold of that and make a statement win with that game. But they got some home cooking from the refs. Gary Bell, for the last 3 games, has played awful. 2 for 8, 6 points in the last 3 games. He was 0 for 1 in the Butler game. We've got to ask Matt Santangelo about that. We've got to ask him what happened in that Butler game, if he agrees that it was home cooking, and ask him how he sees this BYU game tonight and going forward.
Well, I think that, you know, and I want to bring this up to you because, you know, as a fan, you get dialed in. You look at the team and what it's doing. I mean, as an outsider, I got to tell you, you know, they have Gonzaga has 2 non-conference losses to Butler and then to Illinois. So those are for one, Gonzaga plays a lot of non-conference games against good opponents. They played Baylor, and they've played Oklahoma State, and they played Kansas State. Yep. These losses don't mean anything. Those losses don't mean it. They're 17-2. Gonzaga's going to go undefeated, maybe a loss, maybe 2 in conference at most. That's going to be a 2 or 3 seed come tournament time.
Yeah, just as a fan, you always want to see your team be the best it can possibly be. I think we have a lot of talent. I think we should have beat Illinois and Butler. You always want your team to be the best it can be. I want us to kind of take hold and have statement games against Illinois, against the Butlers, and show that we belong up there, ranked 10, 6, where we were against Butler, and make a move towards number 1, not lose these games and fall back to 10 or 13 or wherever.
I agree. And the premise there is that because of, you know, the West Coast Conference not being the strongest conference in America, they schedule a lot of non-conference teams, a lot of good non-conference opponents, and they win most of them. They lose a couple, and I see what you mean as far as, you know. But this loss did not knock Gonzaga down that much. I think the pollsters
6-10.
I think the pollsters realize this is a top 10 team, and that a loss at Butler is not going to kill you. I mean, Jimmy Chitwood playing for the Butler Bulldogs, and but I think that you know, I think Gonzaga is going to be a very good team down the stretch. We're gonna ask Matt Santangelo about all that and much more coming up here with our man, Mr. Santangelo. And we are talking Gonzaga Bulldogs basketball with none other than Matt Santangelo. Had him on a couple of weeks ago. And Matt, we really appreciate you joining us today. How is it going over in Spokane?
You know, Spokane's going well. There's lots of energy. There were lots of questions through the early part of the week, but now those questions have turned to just good energy as they get ready for BYU this evening.
Well, before the BYU game, I want to get back into that Butler game and what's going on with Gary Bell Jr. and what was going on with those refs in that game. Seemed like a little home cooking for the Butler Bulldogs.
Yeah, the referees were a little bit taking care of the crew. First of all, I got to say a couple things. I love Butler. I love Coach Brad Stevens. I think he's fantastic. He's been just a real fun to watch. I mean, I got to call the game last year here in Spokane, of course, and in Indianapolis this last week. Just watching him work the sideline, he's every bit as good as all the stories say about him. The environment was incredible. Not just the history of the Hinkle Fieldhouse. Myself and the general manager of the radio with Tom Hudson actually went over to shoot around earlier in the day, a little early, just so we could get some shots up in the gym. Certainly one of the highlights of I'd say one of the highlights of my basketball career for sure, just being in that you could just almost feel the ghosts of basketball past. The crowd was rocking. There were a couple times throughout the game where I actually had to take my headphones off just so I could take in all the noise, the crowd noise and the cheering, even though a lot of it was going against our Gonzaga Bulldogs. As a basketball fan, you really got to appreciate and respect what's happening. So with those things being said, the game, everyone saw it. It was unfortunate. We can relive the last play, but that last minute was incredible. But to get to your question, Gary Bell, 3 shots on the weekend. He had two attempts in Portland on Thursday, 1 attempt at Butler. Doesn't look like he's playing with a ton of confidence. I think 2 things are happening. One, he's not comfortable shooting a jump shot for whatever reason. That happens, ebbs and flows throughout a season. Sometimes you feel good, sometimes you don't. And 2, with the focus of the ball getting inside to where Gonzaga seems to have a decided advantage over most teams, a lot of them are high-low sets with either Kelly Olynyk or Sam, or any combination of the 4, Shemek or Elias, in the high post. It really is hard for guards to find ways to attack the rim. So if you're not comfortable shooting jump shots and there's no room for you to go attack the rim, well, there's not a lot of shot attempts that are going to happen within the flow of the offense. And Gary, through his first 1.5 years at GU, has never really been a player to be over aggressive. He's not one that goes out and searches for a lot of shots and takes a lot of shots. And so you take away his jump shot, you don't give him any driving lanes. Well, he needs to find a way to be a little bit more assertive. But right now he's having trouble doing that.
Well, getting to the BYU game tonight, we face another pretty good guard. We face Brandon Paul with Illinois. Tonight it's Tyler Hawes. What do you know about him? It seems like he's shooting lights out, 48% field goal, 39% three-point range. How are we going to stop him?
Well, that's a great question. I think, obviously it's going to take a team effort. Gary Bell will probably get the call to start on him, so it's going to be a lot of off-ball motion for Hawes. He's going to be coming off a lot of screens. He's going to do a lot of running around the baseline, a lot of movement, a lot of motion. So it's really going to take a pretty focused effort. What I mean by a team approach is that the bigs are going to have to be available in screens to be able to help show, kind of bump him, slow him down a little bit, so that whoever's guarding him, like I said, probably Gary Bell has the ability to get through screens and kind of stay in the shooting pocket a little bit, and just not getting that space. But he doesn't need much space in order to get shots off, and he's feeling good. It's 7 games in a row, double figures. He's averaging over 20 in conference. He's ready to go. Certainly against in a big time, big game situation like tonight, will be in the kennel. So I think it's going to be a bit of a challenge. He's not quite the athlete Brandon Paul was, as far as to just put up the ball on the floor and actually go get his own shot. Although he's effective getting to the rim a little bit, but maybe not the mid-range game, or just just straight out pull up over whoever's guarding him and get his shot off, like we saw with Brandon Paul with Illinois. And so I think there's some things going. We've also seen bigger guards. I say this Gonzaga Bulldog team has seen bigger guards a couple times, and they've responded a little bit better each time. So it's a little bit like Kevin Foster with Santa Clara, a guy that's going to get a lot of shots up, and a lot of that offense is going to go through. And Gonzaga made life tough for Kevin Foster, who's a fantastic scorer, both with the ball and off the ball. So it's going to take definitely a team effort, but all we can hope is that they come out after Butler's game with a ton of fire, and really just come out a little bit angry, a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, and use that energy in a positive way against BYU tonight.
I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on some of the talking heads out there saying that Gonzaga needs a fifth primetime starter instead of having Mike Hart. But I really like what Mike Hart brings defensively and with hustle. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I love what Mike Hart does as well. A huge fan for his first 3 years, and he was the best 1-minute player in college basketball. He got put in the worst situations and in games, wouldn't play all game long, need one stop, one big play. Oh, Mike Hart come off the bench and go make a play, and he always would make the play. Well, now he's Landry Eddy versus Kyle Van-Guinness versus now Drew Barham, who's getting some minutes at that 3 spot. I think it's the 3 spot in the Gonzaga offense. I mean, it's really a difficult one to play in Coach Few's system. There's not a lot of freedom to do anything but knock down shots when you get the ball passed to you, and that's hard to do. They don't have the freedom that a Kevin Pangos or Gary Bell does to put the ball on the floor and go make plays. Typically it's some type of a defensive rebounding spot that player goes in and needs to really attack the glass, which Mike Hart does, and really defend, which Mike Hart does, and that's why he gets the minutes at that spot. But I think when you look at this team and you know how Gonzaga plays, they're so efficient on offense. They have so many weapons on offense. By not having that fifth, capable player, it allows teams to really kind of jump up their defenses, allows guys to camp out in the key and clog up the key even more for players like Pangos and Gary Bell, as well as the bigs trying to post go over the top or high lows or even just on the block post-ups. It allows another body to be in there to create havoc because you don't have that spot. You don't have that role is just really difficult at the 3 spot. I think they have the weapons on the floor. I mean, I think they have the weapons on the roster. Drew Barham's getting minutes now. He's a knockdown three-point shooter that can really stretch the defense and really has to be respected by the defense, which opens things up. I think that's great. He doesn't hurt you on defense defensively necessarily. He's big and long, maybe not the most lateral quickness, but he's not going to hurt you. Maybe not as good on the glass, certainly as Mike Hart or even Guy Landry Eddy. I think Kyle Van-Guinness, the redshirt freshman, I think he's a really dynamic player as well, but he's another guy that he's going to want to go make plays. And so if you have a guy that wants to go make plays, you're going to have to live with some mistakes. It's going to be a turnover. It's going to be a missed shot. It's going to be a runner in the lane. And I think that's where coaches have a difficult time with that 3 spot because they want them to do all these things, but they don't really give them the 3 spot very much freedom to go explore things throughout the game. And that's why it becomes a stagnant position because they don't have a ton of any of them. The whole core of those those 4 players that play the 3 spot don't have a ton of confidence to really go out and try to take any risks or make things happen because they know they're one mistake away from going back to the sideline.
I wanted to get back to Gary Bell Jr. really quick. He's 2 for 8 in his last 3 games with a total of 6 points. How does he get back on track? How does he get that confidence back?
Well, the number that bothers me is not the 2. The number that bothers me is the 8. He needs more shots. And in Gary Bell's case, it's a Gary Bell issue. I don't think it's a coaching issue whatsoever. Gary Bell has a huge green light in the system. He has a ton of confidence from the coaching staff. He has a ton of confidence from his teammates. I think it's a little bit, they don't run a lot. He's not a great pick-and-roll player, and almost everything they do is pick-and-roll. Gonzaga does, up until the last couple of games, actually sets, screens off the ball to free Kevin Pangos. They put in a set where Kevin Pangos either receives a flare screen from the top to the wing or a down screen where it's actually he's getting a screen away from the ball to get a shot. They have to get Gary Bell in some of those positions, but ultimately Gary Bell's got to step up and take shots. From what I've seen, he's drifting a little bit to his left, so he's not quite getting square and on balance, so his shot's kind of falling short. And now after games of that, he's not quite as confident, which is completely normal and understandable from a player's perspective. Like I said, the ebbs and flows of the season, it doesn't always feel great coming out of your hands as a player. And right now, Gary's struggling with that. But like I said, the number that isn't the 2 that the 2 makes, it's all the limited number of field goals. So Gary's got to do a better job of really searching out shots within the offense. And for me, as a guard, I'm a little biased, of course, towards guards, but that has to come in transition. When you get out in front of some of those bigs and you get the ball on the wing, that's your time. For me, as a point guard, it's when you're coming down the center of the floor and you're getting out in front of those bigs a little bit. That's why I had the freedom to go really make shots. If I couldn't get a shot in transition, then I had to set back and say, okay, what's the offense? Where do we need to go? What are we trying to get accomplished? So for Gary, he needs to be able to get the ball on the wing and really attack before the bigs get down there, before the defense is set and all that spacing goes away. But like I said, ultimately, I think Gary's just got to step up, but he's got to have a volume shots game. I mean, he's got to have a 10-12 shot attempt game. And I think he has the freedom to do it. He just has to have the guts to
Matt, I want to ask you about the prospects of this particular Gonzaga team possibly going undefeated in conference. And this is a team that's obviously the blue blood of the WCC. And what do you think the prospects of that are happening, and should that be expected? And also, come tournament time, do you feel like that this tough non-conference schedule that Gonzaga has played, even though they lost 2 games, will help them seeding-wise?
Well, first of all, with conference, it certainly shouldn't be expected. I think that's one of the hard parts for the players and this coaching staff with Gonzaga over the past, 2 years, are those expectations. It's not realistic to go undefeated in conference. It's so to win the road. I think that's why we saw after even the Butler game, even though that was non-conference, Gonzaga falls over 1 spot in the polls. It's because, and that's Butler without their leading scorer, but that's so hard to win on the road. In Vegas, they get everyone else's best. We go to Santa Clara, which I think is a wonderful place to play as far as environment. The Levy Center, which is the arena that Santa Clara plays in, they set an attendance record against Gonzaga, biggest crowd that Levy Center's ever had. Well, the next 2 nights after that, they play whoever the travel partner is, Portland, and they have less than half of the people that came to watch the same team play a game of basketball. And what I mean by that is everywhere Gonzaga goes, they get the biggest crowd, they get the most hostile environments because they have the biggest bullseye. So, and I say that not to make excuses, but to try to convey the message that it is hard to win on the road in college basketball, especially in conference where everyone's familiar. You have the rivalry games; it's heated, and so I think the expectation for them to go undefeated is, probably too high. Do I think they'll win conference? I think they should win conference. But they still have to go to St. Mary's. They still have to go to BYU, and BYU is one of the best. They're considered mid-major now that they're in the West Coast Conference. They're one of the best mid-majors in college basketball this year. It's a really dynamic team. I'm really excited to see them play in person tonight. So I think the expectation of undefeated is maybe a little high, but I do expect them to regain their the championship, which they lost last year to St. Mary's. And then as far as postseason, I don't think I think I just admire the way that they schedule and the challenges that the coaching staff takes and the players step up to. And this year has been no different. I think every game seems huge, even from the radio perspective of being involved on a daily basis or game by game basis. And I think for sure that the lessons learned, the fact that Kansas State now is playing great. They go into Oklahoma State to win. You guys know all this. The Baylor game is a huge one. The Illinois game, okay, that exposed some things. The Washington State game, that exposed some things. Your challenges with big guards. Well, now you've seen it early on. You can address it. You can work on it throughout the year. You can prepare for it. And maybe you're not surprised come postseason play NCAA tournament when you go up against those big guards again. The fact that all the coaching staff had talked about never practicing or not having practiced enough sideline out of bounds plays, which obviously came up to hurt them in the Butler game. I bet they're working on it now, and so I think that lesson. So it's not always about winning and losing as much as can you get better throughout the year? Can you learn from lessons? That's why the NCAA tournament is such a great deal, because it's who gets hot at this right time. Well, it's those teams that learn from their mistakes throughout the year. It's the ones that are getting better, constantly getting better. And the one thing I can say about this particular Gonzaga team and this coaching staff is that they learn from their mistakes. They're honest about their mistakes. They learn from them, and they try to improve on them. And that's why I think this particular team's going to have, they're doing everything they can to put themselves in a position to have a wonderful postseason.
Going back to the Butler and Illinois games, I was really looking for Gonzaga to make a statement that they're here to stay, they're a power, and we didn't really get that. They got pretty much killed by Brandon Paul and his 33 points, and then they lost to Butler and without their leading scorer. At what point does Gonzaga have to say, we need to make a statement, we need to be the top, like a Duke or a UCLA, teams like that?
Well, I think, I don't know, do you want to be Duke today? They just got blown out by 30. So, it's college basketball, so it's tough. You talk about a statement game. What about Oklahoma State on New Year's Eve in Gallagher Arena? Gallagher-Iba Arena. What about Baylor? That game was back and forth, and it was fantastic. Kansas State, it was just a grind-out, great victory. So you got St. Mary's that they played wonderful for head and shoulders above everyone else in college basketball. I don't think anyone's that way this season. I think the parity in college basketball has really set ourselves up for just a fantastic March. So I don't know. I mean, it's always a question. I think sometimes we have to temper some of those expectations, but at the same time, you have to look. They're 17-2, and they've lost to two top 10 or top 15 teams. I know Illinois is struggling a little bit, and of course Butler will regain their strength when Rodney Clark gets back and healthy. And Gonzaga will continue to roll. So I think, I hear this a lot because I obviously living in Spokane, I get to talk about Gonzaga basketball quite a bit, just walking down the street because the fan support and city and community support here is just fantastic. But I think you're always kind of questioning it. It hurts because you want to see them win, and obviously as a fan, we believe a lot in this particular roster and coaching staff, and you want those big signature wins. But you're not going to win every game. You don't necessarily want to win every game because I think, like we talked about before, if you're able to learn from those mistakes and get some weaknesses exposed and get better, that's what's going to make you better in March, not just breezing through. Because Gonzaga could schedule, like most everyone else does, and play nobody all year long and get their 25 wins and move on to the NCAA tournament and see when you roll your dice, see what happens. But Gonzaga's not that way. They get tested early and often in their seasons, and so you're going to have some losses along the way, but you're also going to have some really good wins.
Well, Matt, can't thank you enough for joining us before the BYU game tonight, giving us a little of your time before heading to work there on West Coast time. I'll tell you what, we will definitely be listening. Have a great call tonight versus the BYU Cougars, and we'll definitely catch up soon, my man.
I appreciate you having me on, and it'll be a fun one. Go Zags.
Absolutely. Hey, we'll talk to you later, Matt. Thanks.
Take care. Thanks so much, Matt.
Great stuff from Matt Santangelo, and he joined us not too long before the game tonight, man. I'll tell you what, that's pretty good.
That is. I mean, he's got a game in about 4 hours here, and he mentioned Gary Bell Jr. He's just got to shoot the ball more. He's got to get more shots. Yes, he was 2 for 8 these last 3 weeks, but he was more concerned about the 8 shots, not the 2 makes. He needs a lot more shots and just needs to get that stroke back and feeling it and get his confidence back.
Well, appreciate you, Matt Santangelo. We anticipate that you're probably outside the arena tonight, sitting in your car, not wanting to go in, waiting to talk to us before he could go in and start doing his research here on BYU. So we thank him for that. Thanks for coming on and talking some college basketball with us. And I think that, and he kind of agreed with me and what I said earlier as far as tempering expectations because of the tough non-conference play. And I think that came across in his point.
Oh, definitely. You have to temper your expectations as far as winning throughout the entire WCC. I mean, it's become a tougher conference now with Santa Clara, BYU, and St. Mary's. They're 3 strong teams along with Gonzaga in the WCC. So going undefeated throughout the entire conference play is a little too much. Maybe you expect 1 or 2 losses, but they should get back on top and be the champions of the league.
I tell you what, has there ever been a year in college basketball where you felt like, I mean, usually year to year to me, I can look at 10, maybe 12, 13 teams. Okay, one of these teams can win a national title. I swear to you, I look out this year and I say anyone from the top 25 could win it.
Even outside the top 25. I mean, you
look
at Miami beating Duke by, 30 plus? I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, you have all these top teams losing constantly.
Indiana hasn't lived up to me. Indiana has not lived up to that recruiting class. And
right now, it looks like Michigan might be the cream of the crop right now, but that could change any night. And it looks like any number of teams, 30-plus teams, could win this championship.
No, we thought it was Louisville. For a long time, I thought it was Louisville. They've lost 2 games since I thought that. They lost on the road to unranked Villanova.
And they lost to Syracuse, our friend's team. So
yeah, and Syracuse is a team that looks like, again, just right in the mix, and I like Brandon Trish, I like what they bring, but I think that the point of this is that it could be anybody. I mean, you've seen Kentucky go on the road and lost to Alabama. Now Kentucky hasn't been ranked for a month and so now, but what's wrong with them? They've got Alex Poitras, Nerlens Noel, like great freshmen again.
No veteran leadership.
They haven't had that for years.
Well, they had it with a few guys with back when Anthony Davis and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist were there. They had some seniors on that team that led them in the locker room, but it's just pretty much completely freshmen, sophomores on that team now, and they just haven't been there and don't know how to handle success and failure.
Apparently not. And I'm shocked because before the year in our college basketball preview, who do we say our Final Four was?
Definitely Kentucky.
And Kentucky and
Kentucky.
And Kentucky.
Yeah.
That was our Final Four.
Not so much.
I don't think any of those teams are going to get into the Final Four right now.
Maybe Kentucky, but I don't know about Kentucky.
I am not sure on that, and I think Florida's obviously emerged as the class in the SEC. But, looking beyond that, if I had to put a gun to your head right now and you told me your Final Four, would it just be throwing darts against a dartboard?
It might be, actually. I'd probably say Kansas with the best player in the nation, I think, and Ben McLemore. Michigan, they've got Trey Burke, an outstanding point guard. Duke, because Krzyzewski is
You're missing a random team that makes no sense. Is that next, hopefully?
Yes. Northern Illinois.
There it is. Can't wait. Well, guys, I tell you what, we're going to be talking a lot of college basketball coming up here in the coming weeks because we're in the heart of conference season, and that's the way we like it here. The weather's getting cold, the heat's getting turned up in the gyms, and we're going to be doing college basketball. We hope you enjoyed it today with our two great guests, J.T. Tiller, Matt Santangelo.
BYU Cougars at Gonzaga Bulldogs tonight, 10 p.m. Central, ESPN2.